Hey y'all, you're listening to Risky Behavior, where no subject is off limits. Sit back, tune in, and enjoy a beverage with us as we explore controversial issues and answer your health and wellness related concerns, ranging from nutrition and exercise to sex and prescription drugs. I'm here with co-host Dr. Shetha Chakraborty, who's a national media risk expert as seen on CNN, BBC, the Fox News, and more.
But don't just think this hour is all science as usual. After 4 seasons as a regular guest and food scientist on the Dr. Oz Show, Dr. Taylor Wallace, who the Huffington Post calls the nation's premier food and nutrition guru. Together, he and I will loosen lips and spill tea with special guests that you will not want to miss.
And today I am so excited. I have my good friend Tobi Amidor here. Tobi Amidor is a registered dietitian. She is also a nutrition expert for Food Network, a Wall Street Journal best-selling author, and an award-winning nutrition scientist. So welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
You cover so many of the topics that women of my age range, and we're not going to give away what that is, but
old.
Damn it. Have questions about. There's so many things that are being flashed at us all the time, and it's really hard to kind of figure your way out and make some sort of understanding of all of the options that are on the table for women about their body image to make them look better, healthier, glow, that much brighter. Help us break some of this stuff down. Talk to us about what is out there. Why are we being so targeted specifically? And then how do we sift through all the noise?
So a lot of it comes with the social media, the growth of the social media. So not only that, they target you because they target a certain age and a certain gender and they look at what you're looking at. And so you get to see, let's say, body images of different people. Either it could be very fit or very thin or very, and that's what society says is beautiful. And that's not necessarily the case.
You never realize this as a guy until you come out and you're gay. And then you all of a sudden get judged. I have friends that are, 35 years old with 8-pack abs. And, I joke with my mother all the time because we went to the beach and I'm like, I'm the fat friend. And she's like, no, you're not. You're so skinny. Da, da, da. And I show her a picture of all my friends and my mom goes, oh my God, you're the fat friend like that. And I'm like, you're on my side. Excuse me, like that. But you really learn what women go through like when you come out because it's very similar in the gay world.
I actually think it's women of my age range and gay men that can actually really commiserate on this.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I can't believe I'm about to make a Bravo reference, but there is a Bravo show called Below Deck. And one season there was one of the stewards. His name was Hosea. And there was a group of gay men that came on, and they were the clients on the boat for this particular episode. And they were gorgeous. Every single one of them, like you just said. And Hosea, who's like one of the most attractive actual cast members, was saying in his interviews in between the scenes how he felt so insecure because of how he was going to be perceived next to these guys. And the whole episode, I thought, did a great job about showcasing the reality of what mental turmoil we can actually really go through, whether you're a man or a woman. And the reality of it all was more mental than anything else. And the men at the end of the episode were like, you are beautiful. Thank you so much. We had such a good time with you. And ultimately, the story arc ended with him feeling good about himself. Do we need more of this kind of narrative to be put out there so that people stop thinking that this the supermodels you see is really what is to be expected?
I absolutely think so. I mean, you look at something like a Kardashian kind of Instagram, and that's what a lot of people, they have the most followers. That's what people are looking at. Yes, they certainly have given curves a better name, but something you look at, how often do people look? I really think it's a lot of social media has to do with this. And then it also has to do with how, like, you're in a group and you perceive one another as well. So, judgment, a lot of judgment, and people don't want to be judged. I've learned, it took me a long time, but I've learned that I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I just want to be happy for myself. And that's what I kind of strive to do.
I have 2 things to say about this. One, I won't ever be on a cruise with a bunch of gay men because, honey, I would throw one of those bitches over the side by the end of the week.
I'm pretty sure that happened in scene 2.
Like, man overboard,
real
quick. And 2, body image is a real thing. I mean, I think all of us suffer from it. And, especially as we get older. And it's something that,
Who's
we
getting
all go
old?
through.
I'm frozen in time. I'm like frozen too.
You're older than I am.
Oh my gosh.
But you know what we were really wanting to talk about today? What Toby does that is so interesting to me. She just wrote this great article for today's Dietitian that was talking about cool sculpting. And it really just resonated with me because I just got back from the dermatologist and they have a cool sculpting machine. And you know, Kim from the Real Housewives, y'all know I am a big Real Housewives of Atlanta fan.
Bravo reference too, and they are not in any way related to our show.
Well, you know, Kim does cool sculpting, and so I was like sitting there and I'm like, you know, I could lose like 5 pounds before beach season starts, but you know, I'm on the go and I don't really want to go to the gym as much as my 8-pack ab friends like do. Can I just get cool sculpting and get rid of these love handles?
No, because I'm going to stop you right there. The cool sculpting is not for weight loss. It is FDA approved, but it's not for weight loss. It's only to get rid of a couple of bulges, like if you want what's approved by the jawline, the thigh, the abdomen, your back fat, if you have any. I don't know, because it's kind of, I haven't seen that part of you.
As in the hard to get spots, right? The ones that no matter.
The margaritas.
Upper arm, like women always complain about, like upper arms. So any of that, that's all approved. And you don't have to be like, to get this, you're supposed to be like of about 30 pounds of your normal weight. You can even be a little bit underweight. It's just to get rid of those hard to, I guess, those spots that are hard to.
Well, you know, as you get older, and you have seen me in a swimsuit, we have had plenty of margaritas at the pool together. Don't lie. And, you know, I've got the little like love handles that you get like on your back. They're the most annoying things ever. And I'm just like, I go to the gym, I run, like I probably go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week and they just don't go away. And the more and more I get into my late 30s they just get harder. Like
you were giving away way too much.
Yes,
TMI.
yes.
No, but I'll say love handles. Come on. They're called love handles because they're you need them for love. And it's called your pouch because it's a baby pouch or a food baby. You know, there's like loving ways to view some of our imperfections. We don't have to constantly be putting it down. So I kind of like the reframing.
Is that what your new boyfriend tells you?
Okay, wait. I want to ask you guys something. Do you guys know anyone who's done this?
Yes, I do.
And how did they feel? Did they tell you the symptoms of like, or, you know, during the procedure, any side effects?
They said it was quite painful, but they said that they saw a visible reduction in fat post-procedure.
And so they definitely so what happens is there's 2 different methods. There's the cool sculpting, which is cold, so they freeze the fat cells in that area, and then your body naturally gets rid of the dead fat cells. Or they could do it through heat, and that's also approved. You know, there are a couple of methods that do that, and again, it's the same methodology.
So you know, I'm silly and fun, but in all seriousness, as a scientist, how safe is this? I mean, you know, because it seems like if you're freezing fat cells, well, you know, you also have a lot of organs and things like that in there that, you know, you could potentially also affect. I mean, if you think about it, your liver is, you know, there's a lot of fat in your liver.
Right.
It's
and
just a vital organ.
Right. But it only does subcutaneously, from my understanding.
Oh, okay.
Like, right, just by those certain locations.
Okay.
That's why those locations are approved. And the science is there. Like, it shows that. However, they're starting to see art. Like, I read recently in a published journal, there was a doctor who actually wrote a paper, and he actually said there are a lot more people coming out saying that they have hardening after the procedure. They have hardening of the areas. That is extremely painful, and then some people even have like certain degree burns on them.
That's a little scary, right? People need to be made aware that this really isn't just a magic bullet, that there are consequences potentially from deciding to undergo this procedure. What extent do these side effects, how prevalent would you say they are, or do they happen to be more like outliers?
First, they thought it was outliers, but now, like I said, they're starting to publish more and more articles. They're finding that there's more side effects that people realize, because what people think is people don't want liposuction, right? It's more evasive. This is a non-invasive, so they don't have to put you to sleep. You know, you could do it, you walk out after like a half an hour. But yeah, so it's non-invasive, and people are like, ooh, I could do lipo without, but you have to remember, you're definitely feeling things during the procedure, and then afterwards, there's certainly potential for side effects.
Well, go ahead.
I'm so curious. Is this the evolution of liposuction? What were the other, so surgical versus non-invasive ways of treating problem areas? Can you give us like a little, what's the landscape of what the procedures are, and where were we and what have we evolved to? Because lipo was all the rage.
Right. So lipo was all the rage probably, 30 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Yeah, they stopped. I mean, they still do that. I mean, you see that show on E all the time, right? Botched. And they do something. I don't know. They're always fixing someone. I can't watch it.
I can't watch it either.
I can't watch
and
it.
E is also not in any way affiliated with our production.
Yeah, no.
Right.
I can't watch that. Yeah, so I think this has come out to be, because it's a contraption that's actually FDA approved, that they don't have to put you to sleep, and you're there for, and it's not one time and you're done. You have to go a couple of times, depending if you have more spots you're having them treat, you have to go more often.
Well, that's actually why I was considering it, because, I saw it at the dermatologist's office, and then, it pops up on Groupon all the time. You look at a lot of like health related stuff when you're in our field, and you see ads that pop up for it every now and then, and you kind of wonder, you're like, well, it's FDA approved, which means that as a scientist, that means there's significant scientific agreement that it's at least somewhat safe. There might be side effects, but at least we know it's not going to kill you over dead.
Right. But you also have to think, like, body image now comes in. So I'm a registered dietitian, so I don't perform this type of, procedure, but I do think about, why does somebody want to get rid of that little bit of fat? Why? What are their thoughts to
because
it?
all their friends have an 8-pack abs
but
and go to the gym 2 hours a day and eat salad without dressing.
But you got to think about it. It's like, actually, a girlfriend of mine, another registered dietitian, she started a hashtag women eating food because to showcase, because women, what are they? They're shown eating like a little salad or an apple or something. But she showcases them on the hashtag women eating food, like biting into a huge sandwich, but like really, trying to break societal's thoughts of how women are eating. They're really enjoying ice cream cones and sandwiches and donuts.
Okay, I really appreciate that, because despite what Taylor might make fun of me for, I do actually go to the gym almost every single day.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
You do.
And I have a
And you
personal
look
trainer.
great. You look
Thank
great.
you. I know, nobody can actually see what's going on below the waist, which is fine. More than happy with the visuals
nobody,
here.
but
Nobody, if my parents are listening to this. And so I have a personal trainer who I work with at least 3 days a week. And I think I've gotten to the point where I'm very happy about my strength, and it's a work in progress. It's you never just kind of sit. There's never a space you achieve and you're happy. It's a constant work in progress. You're constantly looking to better yourself physically, right? And so I'm more or less happy with where I am in that process. And despite that, there's those little problem areas that no matter what exercise I do, I just can't perfect. And when you are really critically evaluating your body from the point of view of training yourself and really wanting to just get to the best physical version of yourself, then I can understand why those little tweaks right under the bra on your back, or the upper arms for women, and the love handles that we were talking about, why you would want to target those areas and really just find that perfection that you're already working towards.
So as much as I appreciate that, and I get it, but why not have it normalized? Like, I had a couple of kids. I have 3 kids. So yeah, my hips got a little bit bigger after that, and I appreciate it. That's that's the love from the kids that are there. Why not normalize a little bit of bra fat? Or
why can't having kids make you look hot?
I think I look hot, and I have 3 kids.
You definitely do.
Tobi does look hot. But one of my really good friends that just had her first baby, she's like, I'm literally breastfeeding this baby till it's 5 years old, because when you breastfeed, it's like you lose so much weight and you look great.
You actually hold on to, so you definitely lose weight, but the body holds on to a little bit, because it needs that extra fat in case you to produce the milk in case you don't consume enough.
Absolutely.
So, and then you actually, when you stop, you lose an extra you lose the rest of that 5 or 8 pounds.
Her baby isn't old enough for her to stop breastfeeding at this point, but good to know.
So I'd love to just turn our conversation towards what really makes you unique from a lot of the food and nutrition experts that we've spoken to, is that you're a clinical dietitian, which means that you have really looked at people who are in some dire disease states, and you've had to work with a lot of those people who, for them, changing their diet and their lifestyle and their habits is a matter of potentially life or death. I'm thinking about diabetes and how much time you have spent understanding and treating diabetes from a dietitian's perspective. Mm-hmm. My father is early on in the diabetes process, and so I'd love to learn from you, because I know if it impacts me, there's so many listeners out there that have first-degree, second-degree relationships with this disease. We can start there, but please feel free to just talk to us a little bit about the different disease states that you've thought about critically as a clinical dietitian.
Yeah, I started in, at that time it was New York Methodist Hospital in Park Slope, Brooklyn. and that's where I trained and that's where I worked. But I've worked with, like, I think one of the store I remember, it was the pediatric ICU. It was a girl. They were having a party. I think it was for Valentine's Day on that, at that time. And she really wanted to participate and eat the candy. And I think she even had like sugar-free candy. But still, if you eat so many of them, she ended up in the pediatric ICU with diabetes. And so I had to talk to her about how do you manage when everybody's having a party, even a birthday party, and there's candy there. So it was, it's really heartfelt when I did it. But I've dealt with also kidney disease, liver disease, cancer. I've dealt with even the NICU I used to work at when the babies are born early and they need like a tube fed in their mouth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
People don't realize the impact that nutrition has on some of these chronic disease states.
yeah. And when you think about it, you think of those who haven't treated their bodies correctly, despite all of their doctor's instructions, and they've sort of let themselves go and they almost are getting what they deserve. But you just gave some examples of those who really, infants and those who are born with, isn't it diabetes?
You could be born with diabetes too.
That's right.
Well, what happens is if actually a diabetic mom has a child, they a lot of times look like a little sumo wrestler. They could be 9-10 pounds, and so they have to keep them in the neonatal unit until they're cleared and they're okay.
So for listeners, I remember studying this back when I was actually a pharmaceutical sales rep for Pfizer back in the day, a long time ago.
Really?
Yes,
I did not know
sold
that.
Norvasc, Caduet, Lipitor, Viagra.
Really?
I was the
I
Viagra
believe
girl.
that.
I know. Our producer was
I
looking
really
at us
believe
like,
that.
our producer was like, it took this many episodes for you to put that out there.
To bring that out?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But that being said, I used to deal a lot with cardiologists, right? And their patients.
Gosh,
And
no wonder them guys chase you down the street.
the Viagra girl. I think it's gone generic now, or is about to, so I'm not nearly as sought
Does
after
somebody
as
have
I
that
once
Twitter
was.
handle? I feel like you should get that.
I actually do know there is a Viagra girl, and I actually do know her.
Really?
Oh my gosh, we digress. So, but I used to know this, right? Because we went through intensive training to understand all of the different disease states that some of these therapies were relevant for. So diabetes was one. Can you explain a little bit from the eagle's eye view what diabetes 1 versus 2 is, and then what sort of advice is similar across both versus different? Let's just explain the difference in this.
Sure. So type 1 diabetes is something you're born with, or you can get up to your early teens, sometimes early 20s once in a while. And basically, what happens is you will need insulin because the body cannot get sugar where it's supposed to go into your cells. So you definitely need insulin. You will need insulin shots for your life. Type 2, a lot of times what happens is it's because someone's overweight. And that's what happens to the body. They have a trouble getting the sugar out of their bloodstream. And so they'll either need, if diet doesn't work, and exercise and healthy lifestyle, which is step 1, then they'll go to step 2, which they'll give them pills. And if that still doesn't help them with the blood sugar levels, then they'll start giving them like a combination usually of like insulin and pills, or insulin, depends what the doctor and dietitian feel is the best. But one thing we do have to understand with diabetes, you definitely need to eat some sort of carbs. And that's a misconception. People think you don't need carbs, but you actually really need them, but in certain amounts at every meal and snack. And that's in order to help regulate the blood sugar with the medicine, usually, if you're on that.
And I should give a call out, and I did not do this in the intro because Tobi has such a long resume. I mean, she's done so much. One of her hundreds of cookbooks that she has, she's a Wall Street Journal best-selling author, but she has a new cookbook called the Create Your Plate, the Diabetes Cookbook. It is the cookbook of the American Diabetes Association. So for those of you all who are interested in a healthy carb diet, or just a diet that is good for those with pre-diabetes or diabetes, there you go. It's going to be out soon, right?
Yes, it's coming out in mid-March.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about what the different recommendations are for those with type 1. So do you cover type 1 and type 2?
Yeah, because the recommendations in terms of the food are very similar, or actually the same. You just, again, with the medication, depending if it's a pill or if it's a shot, you have to talk to your dietitian or doctor, and they'll tell you exactly how much you should eat. But when my cookbook, the difference between my cookbook and a lot of others is it shows you how to build a plate for a diabetic without having to count your carbs and count your calories. And all the recipes are approved by the American Diabetes Association and has all the, all the nutrition information, the grams of carbs and all that in there.
Because this is more than just the person that is suffering from diabetes. It's also the family that they are a part of, and the fact that, for example, in my situation, my mother is creating the plates for my father. So she needs to be in the know of exactly what to do and how to prepare the foods. This is much bigger than just the issue of the particular disease state and the person suffering from it.
Oh, yeah.
How do you engage with the person who is dealing with the condition, but then you take like a kind of whole picture view of the situation too? You see the setup with their how they eat, what their process is, how they make decisions. What sort of advice would you give to somebody who was just diagnosed, let's say, with diabetes 2?
So somebody who's just diagnosed, really, I recommend getting like a good team together. That's really number one step. So having your physician and then having a registered dietitian, and they're actually registered dietitians who are also certified diabetes educators or CDEs. So you can go find them. Insurance will take that because it's considered a disease state. So insurance is covered. Usually depends on the dietitian, but you can find people who are certainly covered. Once you do that, then the family should be involved. Whoever's involved with it can go in and actually talk to the dietitian and talk about how to go food shopping and what to make. Because a lot of the dishes in the cookbook, I fed my family. I fed it to my boyfriend. Right. They're just as delicious. You just have to make sure for the, a diabetic individual that the way it is, create your plate. So half the plate is non-starchy vegetables, a quarter of the plate is lean protein, and a quarter of the plate, that is your carbs. It could be potatoes, it could be corn, or it could be, which I recommend also, whole grains, because you want, fiber in there.
And this is a good move generally. This is a cookbook that is useful across the board.
Yeah, the whole family can enjoy it, absolutely.
Yeah, as a researcher, I actually think our carb recommendations are too high. We say 45 to 65% of your calories as carbs, but I actually think that's a little bit too high. I think it's more in the like 35 to 45% range. I think one of the problems in the U.S. is our recommended intakes for nutrients have not been updated since the late 90s. And I think that's a big issue for us. And, whole grains are one thing, but refined grains are another thing because they're converted directly into sugar by your body. So I agree. I think it's really an issue all around.
So we just have a few minutes left, and you have given us so much information and food for thought. No pun intended. That was such a bad joke. Oh my God.
I love food puns.
But why don't you? What is it that you get? Because you do so much television. You have been out and putting yourself out there and getting a lot of public feedback for the work that you've done. So what do you hear? What is it that, in terms of misconceptions, you find that you're regularly correcting and you would like to see corrected for our audience?
There are a lot of food misconceptions in terms of agriculture, in terms of sustainability. That there are a ton of them that I'm always writing about.
Crap, I brought this up in like 3 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
She's preaching to the choir now. I'm just going to sit back and raise my hands up.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've done, and Taylor, have you been with me on any farm tours? Like I get invited.
Yeah.
Like I'm lucky enough because I talk about this so much.
Yeah, I remember one of the first times we met was on the beef in Colorado. Yeah.
Was it Colorado or Aspen?
Aspen? Yeah.
Yeah, that was such a beautiful trip.
It was so pretty.
So we're just lucky enough that I've been on like 50 or 60 farm tours that they're mainly sponsored, but they fly you out and then they explain everything from literally the farm to the table. And I think that's why I do it, so I can debunk a lot of these misconceptions about food.
Right. What would you say is kind of in your top 3, let's say?
Well, the first thing that I said was, remember with diabetics, I'll just go back there. Diabetics, a lot of people think they can go like on keto or intermittent fasting, and like diabetics, they need to have carbs in their diet because it works with the glucose, and that's super important. So that's one, debunking it relating to what we talked about.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting. Since you brought up some of these diet fads, what is it that you've seen in terms of people that had high hopes that they could kind of just like, okay, so diabetics are a specific population, but generally speaking, some of these, people really believe that they can just kind of pick up the keto diet, pick up the, what was the other one that you said?
Intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting. I can't even pronounce it. You know I don't do it. you know I've not tried to do something that I can
You work
not
out
pronounce.
every day. It's okay.
Yes, yes.
You did not look at me directly in the eyes when you said that. It makes me think you don't believe me. But so what are some of these diets that you've seen that you wish you could kind of coax people out of, or are they okay?
No, there's a few that I'm okay with. Like Mediterranean diet is more of a lifestyle. I actually grew up Israel. My family's from Israel, so I actually grew up summers there, and that's how we eat in the house. So that I'm okay. But keto, there's so many new products coming out that are keto based.
Yeah.
If we had more time, we would go totally into that. But
Right.
I'm not a keto fan, and most people don't follow it properly.
Right. And then intermittent fasting, can you give us any insight there?
Yeah, intermittent fasting, there's two main ones. One is where you fast for 24 hours, and then the rest of the few days in between, you eat a quarter of your calories, like 500 calories if you're on 2,000 calorie diet. But if you're exercising every day, it's not sustainable with 500 calories. So that's just right there is an issue I have. The other type of intermittent fasting is when you have intervals of time that you eat. So let's say an 8-hour window between, what is it, like 10 and do the math. 10, 11,
Right.
12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This
And
is
you
happy
can
hour.
eat-
We can't do
Yeah,
math during
that's
happy
why
hour.
I'm using my
I'm already a
fingers.
couple glasses of wine in.
So you eat for like your period of time, it's 8 hours through the day. And to me, again, that's an issue, especially like a diabetic. They need to have, especially if they're on certain medications, they need to have, 15,
Right.
30, 45 grams of carbs at that time.
Right.
So it could be actually dangerous for certain populations.
Right, I completely agree. And any of those fad diets, they always fail. I mean, they never work. I mean, you might lose a
You'll
little bit of weight
lose,
in the
right.
short term, but in the long term, it never works.
Yes, we've definitely learned that from you, Taylor, and it's such a privilege to actually have as a co-host somebody who understands this space. Despite that, I'm gaining weight, so I'm just going to point my finger at you for that. There's clearly no other explanation. I'm kidding. Okay, one last question while we have you is you have 3 children.
Yep.
And they are happy and healthy.
Yep.
How do you convince your children, and what is it that you do, and what is it that mom should know about creating a healthy, happy feeding space so that kids are excited about food and that they're looking forward to healthy diets?
So since my kids were like literally eating, 6 months they were eating food, I've always given them breakfast. So today, like my son is 17 and my daughters are 14 and 12, they will not leave the house they want breakfast, whether it's by me. I don't love when they eat by school, but I make full on pancakes and eggs and omelets and waffles and muffin. Like we eat breakfast, oatmeal. And the other thing is, remind me the question again because I forgot.
What is it? How do you get your children excited about really healthy eating?
So, see, it reminds me of the answer. So the other way is because I'm a cookbook author, I cook a lot with them. So my youngest daughter actually knows how to edit and modify recipes while I'm in the kitchen, and she helps me now actually testing them.
Well, how many cookbooks do you have now?
I have, 4 plus 2 are coming out, and I'm working on 2 for next year.
So, I mean, your daughter should be like a pro at this by
She
now.
is.
I mean, you've got
She
so many
is.
Wall Street Journal best-selling cookbooks, honey.
Oh, keep talking, yeah.
There we go. Okay, well, that's all for the day. All for today. Remember to check us out every week. I had a couple glasses of wine. Have ideas for the show? Tweet us at Dr. Taylor Wallace and at Shetha C. Thanks for tuning in to Risky Behavior. Until next time.